Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening around the world. My name's Blackjack. Welcome back to the channel. As always, today we are doing a YouTube comment section deck tech. If you're interested in having me put a deck together for you, give you some inspiration to make some changes to an older deck, or maybe build something new, in the comments down below, I'm looking for any combination of the following: a theme, pet cards, budgetary restrictions, and or a commander, and I'd be happy to put together a video for you and present it on the channel. Today we have a request from the user Doobie, who says they just got into Magic earlier this year. Congratulations, it is the best game ever made. They are trying to build a D&D, which I assume means Dungeons and Dragons theme deck, looking for dice rolls, dungeons, event, party, anything that really is thematic to Dungeons and Dragons. So, that's exactly what I did. Let's go ahead and get started. So, Tiamat, for those who don't know, it's a 5-color dragon commander. Says when it enters, if you cast it, search your library for up to 5 dragons not named Tiamat, reveal them, put them into your hand, and shuffle. So the way I built this doesn't have a ton of dragons. In fact, I believe our dragon count is, let's see, we have ancient brass, copper, gold, silver. That's 4. We have ebon death, which is 5. And I think we have 6. Yep, 2-headed hellkite. So we only have 6 dragons to get. I didn't want it to be an overloaded dragon theme. I've never played Dungeons and Dragons, but I imagine dragons are mythical creatures that aren't just common in every city you come to. They're not just common in every cave that you're looking through, but they feel like more um, calamity level events, so to speak. So I wanted to make sure the dragons we played were very, very good for their rate, but also there wasn't too many of them. So Tiamat in this deck is more of a, once you've run out of things to do in your hand, you can play Tiamat, go get 5 insanely powerful dragons out of your deck that all on their own will hard carry the game if not dealt with. So Tiamat is more like a draw the 5 best cards in your deck tool towards the middle to the end of the game. I would not recommend Doobie that you just play this haphazardly as soon as you can. That being said, I tried to get some dice rolling, some party mechanics, some dragons, some stuff that reminded me of Dungeons and Dragons. I tried to kind of get a good mix of everything in here. So obviously there's going to be times where the choices aren't optimal, but in my opinion were more thematic based on Dungeons and Dragons. So we start with Eliwick. Let me see. Maybe I will zoom this in a little bit more for you guys. Let me see how that looks on the video. Yeah, that's good. So we have Eliwick, Tumblestrum. So +1 simply just ventures into the dungeon, and -2 looks at the top 6 and reveals a creature. Obviously, we have an emblem as well that we could get with the ultimate, but more often than not, I imagine you're just going to be doing a mixture of venturing slash minusing to look at the top 6. So, again, please note that a lot of the creatures in this deck fit the party mechanic of cleric, rogue, warrior, or wizard. Aside from the dragons that Tiamat gets, most of the creatures in this deck do or are one of those things. So we have Acerak. When it enters the battlefield, if you haven't completed Tomb of Annihilation, you return it to your hand and venture into the dungeon. Whenever he attacks for each opponent, you make a 2/2 zombie unless that player sacks a creature. So this is a easy, repeatable way for us to go further into the dungeon. The dragons, like I said, we have 6 total. I picked what I believe to be the most thematic and powerful dragons. So brass is able to recur stuff out of the graveyard. Copper can make a ton of treasures. Gold can make a ton of fairies. Silver can draw a ton of cards. I skipped green, but I did have old Gnawbone instead because just creating that many treasures is a very, very good effect. So actually, I believe there's 7 dragons in here. I added Ebon Death It felt very thematic. It looks like something that you would find in Dungeons and Dragons. Not to mention, it is a repeatable effect. It has flash, it has flying, and you can cast it out of your graveyard multiple times. So it's cool to have just a repeatable dragon, repeatable aggression, something that you can do with leftover mana. And the final dragon is Two-Headed Hellkite, which I think is my personal favorite. Flying, Menace, Haste, already very powerful. Whenever it attacks, simply draw 2 cards. I mean, the rate on this card is insane. Cards have been getting pushed as of late, and this is no exception. This is probably one of the best dragons in the deck, and I would be happy to have it in my hand. So, getting back to our regular scheduled programming, we have Barrowin, who is a cleric. When it enters, you venture into the dungeon, and when it attacks, you can get a creature from your graveyard back to the battlefield if you've completed a dungeon. And surprisingly, it's mana value 3 or less. There's not a ton of that in here. There's maybe, yeah, like 3 or 4 creatures, maybe 5. But the most important thing is always venturing into the dungeon. We have Barakos, party leader, who counts as a cleric, rogue, warrior, and wizard. And then when he attacks, you get treasure tokens. Delina, when this is getting to the dice rolling, we also have the dice rolling theme in here, so we can make copies of stuff, but we get to roll every time we attack. Hama Pashar, again, dungeon stuff. We get to trigger it twice. We have Linvala, Shield of Sea Gate. At the beginning of combat on your turn, if you have a full party, you get to tap and stun a non-land permanent. We do have a few things in here like Maskwood Nexus that basically will make everything a full party. So what I mean by that is like Barakos is an entire party in himself because he counts as all these different things. And if you've never seen Maskwood Nexus, it turns all your creatures into every creature type. So every single creature that you play, or if you activate this and make a shapeshifter with Changeling, it is going to be in of itself a warrior, rogue, cleric, wizard. We have Masked Vandal, who, just like we talked about, is a changeling, so it is all of the above. And then it can randomly exile a thing out of the graveyard and also hit an artifact or enchantment. Midnight Pathlighter is another way to venture with dungeon. Nadar is dungeons. Nalia, so you can cast Cleric, Rogue, Warrior, and Wizards from the top of your library, and again, most of the creatures in our deck do fit that bill. Pixie Guide is a way to double up dice rolls. Sakura Tribe Elder, let's get this out of the way. Same as always, Sakura Tribe Elder is our first piece of ramp in our green deck. We have Sakura Tribe Elder, Cultivate, Farseek, Kodama's Reach, Nature's Lore, Rampant Growth, 3 Visits, Arcane Signet, Soul Ring, and Felwar Stone. 10 up, 10 down, making us more consistent as always. There are 2 3-mana ramp spells in here. There is... I'm not sure, I guess, technically, if you'd count this. There's Sarvok's Tomb, or Tome, which adds mana based on if you have initiative. That one's 4 mana. And then we also have Dungeon Map, which adds mana, but you can also just sink mana into it later in the game to venture into a dungeon. And then Treasure Chest. In my opinion, I think it ramps. Kind of not. But about 10 to 12 pieces. Obviously, our commander is expensive, so we want to be able to cast it. We have Seasoned Dungeoneer, more taking the initiative. Sephirus of the Hidden Ways, a way to venture into the dungeon and then also get creatures out of the graveyard. Undermountain Adventure is a way to ramp as well as taking the initiative. White Plume takes initiative. Will is double dice rolls. And Wan T. Mollison is can't be blocked to venture into the dungeon on attack. So again, most of our creatures are thematic to not only Dungeons and Dragons, but are looking to either fit the bill of the class specific Dungeons and Dragons creatures or have something to do with dice rolling. Sorceries, pretty simple package, nothing crazy to note here. We have a few board wipes, Blasphemous Act, Damn, Farewell. In my opinion, probably three of the best board wipes in Casual Commander. Obviously, Blasphemous Act is cheap, Damn is multi-purposed, and Farewell is multi-purposed. So that's why, in my opinion, they're some of the best. Fate's Reversal ventures into the dungeon and gets his creature back. Reckless Endeavor rolls dice and then can be a board wipe as well as creating us a bunch of treasures. Very good card. You find a cursed idol, a way for us to venture into the dungeon or get rid of an artifact or enchantment if something's on the battlefield that we need to deal with. Instance, we have Bar the Gate. It is our only counterspell-esque card in here because it allows us to venture into the dungeon when we counter something. We have Contraband Livestock, which allows us to roll dice. Flame of Anor is a very cool card, very good rate for what it does. Hopefully we'll have a wizard, but even if we don't, drawing 2 for 3 is not the worst thing you can do. And if we do happen to have a wizard, getting both 2 of these 3 effects is extremely good. Swords of Plowshares is obvious, the best removal in white. Artifacts, we have Bag of Tricks. It allows us to roll dice and then get creatures out of our deck. Delver's Torch, when we attack, we venture into the dungeon. Maskwood Nexus, we've already talked about this, but not only being able to make all of the creatures we own the full party type, but also create entire parties in one creature. So if this is out, we pay 3, we make a 2/2 shapeshifter. We just paid 3 mana to make an entire D&D party. So we trigger all of our party mechanics in one. All the same, Black Market Connections will also do the same thing by making a changeling shapeshifter. We have multi-class Baldric, which it gives lifelink, death touch, haste, and flying if you have the full party. And then if you do, you prevent all damage that would be dealt to that creature. So I just thought it was a super cool card thematically to put in here. The Tome we already talked about. It gives us initiative, it gives us mana, and it gives us something to do late game as a mana sink. We have Swiftfoot Boots as well as Lightning Greaves. A lot of the creatures that we play are very powerful and have a big impact on the game, so people are going to want to get rid of them. Having multiple ways to protect them is important, especially when we do mid to late game, run out of gas, cast Tiamat, get all of our badass dragons, and then basically put everybody to the test. The Deck of Many Things rolls a d20, and then you get a bunch of different effects out of it. It's a great card for card advantage, and it's a good engine piece, but it also rolls dice. Treasure Chest, we already talked about. There's a decent amount of ways to get treasure in this deck. If you find yourself having trouble getting enough treasure, you could replace this, but it felt too thematic not to add. We have the Puzzle Box, which again has to do with dice rolling, and then Wand of Wonder, which can cast stuff from other people and also has to do with dice rolling. The enchantments, Barbarian class rolls a second die. Wizard class gives us no maximum hand size and allows us to draw cards. Black Market Connections and Phyrexian Arena are great engine card advantage pieces that we can get on the battlefield early and guarantee that we have a smooth mid to late game by drawing consistently more cards than anyone else. Thorough Investigation, whenever you attack, investigate. Whenever you sack a clue, venture into the dungeon. Similar to these two, obviously slower and worse, but much more thematic, and late game could turn out to be better. Finally, the lands. There was no budget restriction. I didn't go insane with the land base, but it is very good. It's pretty much all of the fetches, all of the shocks, all of the battle lands, like the unless you have 2 or more opponent lands. Excuse me. We have 2 triomes, Command Tower, Exotic Orchard, Mana Confluence, and then a couple of basics. There's nothing crazy to see here. There's no special lands. I just really wanted to make sure that your mana base was consistent because, as you can see from the distribution of colors, this is actually a fairly even split of colors for a 5 color deck. More often than not, you'd see 5 color decks with really heavy coloring into like one or two. This did a pretty good job of hitting all five. I'm pretty proud of that. And I did do a couple of test hands, and I was pretty happy with all the results. I was venturing into the dungeon very early into the game. I was ramping consistently. And again, I think once you get to the mid to late game, if you somehow run out of stuff to do, cast your Tiamat and just go get 5 must-answer dragon threats to carry you into the late game. So, I hope you enjoyed it. I tried to give you a little bit of everything, make this feel very thematic to Dungeons and Dragons, and I think we accomplished that. It looks like a lot of fun to play. So, as always, I hope this gave you some ideas. I hope you put it together. Let me know how it went in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, Godspeed.